you actually get nudged out by investors, but then come back.
So I thought, this entrepreneurship thing is easy. I can go be international businessman. And in the course of a year, I lost all the money that I had made from the first company. I contracted a parasite and lost my girlfriend.
Imagine you're the CEO of an organic landscaping company, and then a restaurant chain. Next, a food delivery company, and finally, a vegetable noodle manufacturer. As a seasoned entrepreneur, you're no stranger to the power of ideas. Yet, it's crucial to remember, potent ideas pave the path for profound innovation. However, this innovation, as transformative as it can be, invariably brings with it an array of formidable challenges.
I get a call a day before the board meeting 2 months later, and they said, we're shutting the company down. And I was just like, that was a shot to the heart.
How did you learn the operational skills you needed, because you didn't come from a big CPG company?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think
the journey of entrepreneurship is not just about sparking innovation, but also about adeptly navigating these complexities that arise.
What's the one thing they can do to give themselves a better chance of success?
It may or may not give them the better chance of success, but I think it gives them the better chance of being happy and fulfilled. Is I try to advise them to really...
Mason Arnold, welcome to Top CEO. And one of the things I love about your background is that you're a serial entrepreneur in a way that a lot of people aspire to be, meaning you've started a lot of companies, you've had successful exits, you've moved on to new ones. And to start off with, why are you a serial entrepreneur? Why not just do just one and keep doing it? And what is the common thread that keeps you innovating in a series of companies?
Yeah, a couple of my first company went really well. Second one went really poorly. Third one just kind of like dragged on. And when I finally got a chance to exit that one, I really I had a real internal look at myself. Like, am I going to keep doing this? Because it can be really painful. Even if everything goes right, there's still market forces and things can be painful at any turn. But when I look at like what really gives me joy in work, one, I consider it as creating something that didn't exist before in the world. And to me that, and then people say, exchanging their money for it and saying, this is worth something to me and I'm willing to pay money for this thing that didn't exist before. And to me, that's one of the greatest feelings of being an entrepreneur. Now, as companies grow, handbooks and legal policies and all of those things just interest me dramatically less. And there are people who enjoy those stages of the company. And I don't. I really enjoy the very early stage of like, how do we solve a problem here for people and create something in the world that both solves their problem and is economically viable. And then for me, the thread that has been in my entire career is sustainability. And so everything that I do, I hope that it is helping make the world a better place. Some things it's hard to tell. Like we won't know in retrospect whether particular environmental movements or actions were good or bad for the planet because it's such a complex system. But that's a whole different podcast. So I'm trying to create companies that help make the world a better place. And at some point I got comfortable with I'm just going to be doing it for the rest of my career and just keep doing it. So what I work on now, as I dig into new projects, I try to tighten up the cycle some and make sure that we're not wasting time on particular parts of the business and that we're able to get out and iterate faster and understand product market fit faster and try to validate assumptions quicker to build stronger businesses. So the very first company I started, so I was trained as a chemical engineer, went to work filing chemical and oil permits for chemical and oil companies. Saw these reports come across my desk, started to learn about sustainability and what was happening to the environment, and it was making me sick. In Texas, where I live, the number one pollutant to Texas waterways is actually residential fertilizer. And another report came across that organic fertilizers were better than synthetic in every way, shape, or form. And so I immediately put in notice and went to start my first company, which was an organic landscaping company. It wasn't rocket science, there's fundamentals of business involved there, but it's not a very complex business. And so that was a great first business for me. I learned a lot. Very early days of Google and Google Ads. And so I was the only landscaper doing any kind of Google Ads. And so that company went very well. I grew it for a couple of years. But as I learned more about sustainability, I wanted to get closer to either energy, water, or food, which I think are major challenges from a sustainability perspective. So I sold that company. I was 24 years old, more money in the bank than I had ever thought. I actually moved to Spain to start a chain of restaurants. I thought, this entrepreneurship thing is easy. I can go be international businessman. And in the course of a year, I lost all the money that I had made from the first company. I contracted a parasite and lost my girlfriend. And so I ended up moving back and landed on my mom's couch, broke, sick, and alone. And had, proverbial walk with Jesus. I'm not very religious, but really had to be like, what the fuck is going on? And that's when I decided to make sure that sustainability was at the core of everything that I do, because if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I want to be able to feel like what I was doing up to today was making a difference. And so that next company that kind of dragged on, it was called Greenling. We were early in the grocery delivery space. We worked with local and organic products and produce and farms, and ran that for 10 years. And that was just a really tough and very complex business.
So you have this second act, the business, it's kind of dragging on. You're trying to find your way. As part of this kind of issues that serial entrepreneurs face, or entrepreneurs of any types, you actually get nudged out by investors, but then come back. Is that correct? Like your own Steve Jobs, famous for getting kicked out of Apple, comes back and of course becomes, after that, legendary Steve Jobs. You had your experience with this, correct?
Yeah, it was insane. And at that company, it was called Greenling, and we were grocery delivery. And it was, over time as a serial entrepreneur, I had to figure out how to separate my personal brand from the company brands. But at that time, it was one and the same. And like, I was Greenling, Greenling was me, and ran that business for 10 years at about...
Meaning if you get nudged out, this is like a personal assault on you at this point, right? If you're one and the same, like you take offense at this.
And I was a personal guarantee on like $500,000 of debt. And so these other people are running this company, but it was the only way for the investors at the time to continue to fund the company was if I left, and otherwise the company was going to shut down. So I made the tough decision, said, okay, I'm going to hire someone to replace me and leave so that it can live on. Because at that point, it living on was more important to me than, my particular involvement in it. But it wasn't like I got to go on vacation. I'm sitting there, wondering what they're doing with this company that has my name all over it and a ton of debt tied to me. And they were supposed to fund it for another year. And I get a call a day before the board meeting 2 months later, and they said, we're shutting the company down. And I was just like, that was a shot to the heart. And I was like, guys, you've got to give me an opportunity to find some other solution than just shutting down the company, because we were working with farmers. We had orders for months in advance. It employed 90 people. It was still doing good work and a good company. And they said, okay, well, we'll let you try to find some other option, but we're running out of cash, so there's a time limit. I'm like, okay, I understand that. How much time do I have? And they said 2 weeks. And so I had 2 weeks to try to figure out how to find new investors.
A leisurely 2 weeks.
Yeah. And in that first week, I clocked it. I had 93 conversations to try to save the company. And as I was doing it, in that 2 months when I had left, they had contracted the business some, and they had gotten it down to this point that when I was running the company prior at that size, it was profitable. And I was able to look at the P&L after they had contracted it and was like, I actually know how to make this size company and this size headcount profitable because I'd done it before. And I couldn't find, and I found 2 vulture investors that were just going to decimate, completely wipe out the cap table, get rid of everything, change all kinds of things. And they were all just bad situations for the company. And, but I'm telling this one investor, I'm like, you can make this profitable. Here's how you do it. Here's where you make cuts. And here's how you get the company back on its feet. And he's like, well, why don't you just do it? And I'm like, that's the last thing on the planet I want to do. And he's like, well, I don't think anyone else is going to do it. And so I tendered an offer to the investors to buy it back with the last cash advance on my last credit card, as literally the last dollar I could massage out of anything in my entire world.
Meaning if they reject this offer or try to hardball you or something else, you can't do it. You need them to take this offer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what happens? What happens?
It was the best offer for the company because it was just a equity cram down. It left investors intact, but just a smaller portion of the company. And I bought my company back for essentially nothing and invested money off my credit card into it to buy me another 2 months of runway. And I said, okay, I have 60 days to get this company to break even or better. And I did it in 30 days. And in 1 month, I got the company profitable. But then it's grocery delivery with Amazon and Instacart breathing down is a tough space. And so I was like, I've got to find an exit for this, a home for this company and these customers and these farmers and everything. And so, but once I had it profitable, it was easier to find an acquirer. And I'd spent the next 6 months, brokering deals and sold the company.
And then that brings us to CeCe's, which is probably, I'd say, the best known of the brands. I'm a customer of CeCe's.
Oh, awesome!
So I'm familiar because I'm trying to. And if listeners, if you're wondering if you're a customer or not, you might be. If you're kind of into how to describe this, like you love pasta type dishes, but you don't love the carbs involved in pasta type dishes. So you're gonna get these like very elegantly cut veggies like zucchini and butternut squash and other things, and you're gonna make your cacio e pepe with veggies, and it's going to be great. That's CeCe's, right? So tell me the journey of that as kind of as a phase and a whole sort of different scale of company.
Yeah. And so in those years of running Greenling and being an online retailer, I had products come to me all the time, people launching new products. And I got really good at guessing which ones were going to make it based on the product attributes, price point, branding, marketing, all that. And so I was like, I think this CPG thing, I could be good at it. I think I could make a product. And at the same time, we had a value-added kitchen where we were processing vegetables, chopping onions and broccoli. And so I understood the cost structure. But I'd had a vegetable noodle on a cleanse one time. And I'm like, I'm surprised no one has commercialized this. And when I looked around for the machines that existed just couldn't make it fast enough and high quality enough. And I did a deep dive on the engineering. I invented a machine to make the product, make vegetable noodles in a more efficient and higher quality way than what was available out there, and created a brand around this for the produce department. We created a brand new category in produce, and it was immediately just a rocket ship. I think we hit product market timing perfect because keto was just starting to gain, and so many people were trying to drop the carbs of pasta. And so people, I don't even think they knew they needed this product until they saw it, and then they had to have it. And so that one was a lot of fun. We ended up number 3 on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies in the country. We grew from nothing to 25 million in 3 years. and grew from 5 people to 250 people in those 3 years. And I was able to bootstrap a lot of it because I knew what happens when you take on outside money and the timelines that start with that. But an interesting thing, like I designed that product and the brand so well that the challenges with that company were all operational. It was like, how do we make more of this product? How do we get it across the country? How do we keep it fresh? How do we keep it, safe to eat? It's a fresh product that's been cut. And so listeria, there's bacteria issues. And so it was just a fascinating and wonderful journey that coming out of Greenling, there was all this baggage and even emotional baggage as an entrepreneur that I should have taken time off, but I was not in a financial position to. The Greenling sale, wasn't a great sale. It landed as a good home, but I didn't do well out of it. And so I had to jump back in right away. And so that was one of the hardest parts is as an entrepreneur, I think we need to take breaks between some of these projects. And I didn't get to, but luckily the CeCe's just took off on its own.
Well, and so it's interesting to think about, it's one thing to launch a new brand or a new product, particularly in a different sort of space. We do our marketing agency. We do a ton of work in CPG. It has its own kind of dynamics and particularly produce within CPG. But when you actually are creating a category, what is the added challenge of that? And it seems like your timing really was impeccable because, when you create a category, sometimes you can be too early. You can be too late. There's lots of timing issues there. So what is the added challenge for just people that are thinking about, I'm going to create something that hasn't been done before. That can be great, but that can also be incredibly challenging.
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge to that was we'd call it the copycats, and not just people coming out with brands, but every retailer. We created a branded category in a part of the grocery store that doesn't have brands, and grocery stores feel like they own the produce department and it's their pride and joy and their name is on, cut veg. And so most grocery stores have private label in that area of the store. So convincing them to carry a brand, and we were able to do it very well because we were like, this is brand new. People don't know how to use this. People are boiling these zucchini noodles and they immediately fall apart. Like, you need a brand, a national brand to help educate consumers on what this category is, how to use it. And that's what we're going to do. And that's why we don't want to make a private label product for you. And then when you have something with a very short shelf life, we're essentially making product on demand. We'd make it in the evening and ship it out the next morning to stores across the country. And there's a velocity where if stores let competitors come in, and then it splits how fast each of those products move, and then they start spoiling or spoil at the consumer's home because you've got too many brands on the shelf. Those end up being real challenges that can kill the whole category, because then people have a bad experience with the product and stop ordering it, even though it was because the copycat was a much worse version of it.
So how do you tackle just the logistics, the operational side of this, where I think it's also a little bit daunting because one listeria outbreak, can kill a brand or kill a tremendous amount of value. So you're sort of on the cusp of that. You can see, it can be your fault. It could also not be your fault. It could be someone else in the supply chain doing something else that just affects the timing that does this. How did you manage that, and how did you learn the operational skills you needed, because you didn't come from a big CPG company who's worked in the space where people learn that skill? Yeah,
that's a great question. And I think one, my engineering mindset was that I'm always solving problems. And some of them later on, I realized the solutions were really easy had I known the right people. And we'd spent a lot of time trying to solve problems. But I'm also a bit of a technophile. So I really love technology and new advancements in it. And I think the kind of sensor/tracking of food through the supply chain was just hitting an inflection point where you could put temperature and GPS trackers on every single load for, single dollars or a couple tens of dollars instead of $50 to $100 or $200 per sensor that gets, sent around. And so being able to actually track the product as it moved through the supply chain all the way to the retail shelves. And we would sometimes hide them in an individual package when retailers were saying that the product was going bad and that it was all our fault. We'd send sensors that made it all the way to the shelf, and we're like, on the 8th of September, which is when it hit your shelf, the temperature spikes up to 55 degrees, and it's just that their cooler wasn't working as well, right? And so being able to track that, I think, was really key. And I was just constantly looking for technologies and ways to better operate.
And you grow this brand. It's going great. Your timing really works well. You've got people like me who were like trying to cut things at home and say, oh, that's way easier. Okay, that's great. Who love pasta and need a better way. And then you get to this moment where, how are you going to scale this thing, right? It's one thing to be successful up to a certain point. It's another thing to be successful after that point. Amazing that you bootstrapped it to this point, but you've got to decide if you're going to take outside money. I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs face, particularly because sometimes you get into this type of work because you want to work for yourself. You want to create something. You sort of don't want to have a boss, and then you need money to get to the next phase. Money has some strings attached. It sets some timetables. How did you think about that? What did you face, and what did you ultimately decide?
Yeah, we were busting at the seams in our space. We had moved 3 times in the first 3 years to bigger spaces. I'm like, we really need a much bigger space. The fact that we didn't even yet have 2 years of tax returns. I'm like, I talked to banks and they're like, no way we're giving you a loan that big. And so I'm looking at the customer list, and we're doing great and we're profitable. But there wasn't any way to grow quickly. We would have to slowly grow and piece by piece add on things to increase production capacity. And staring at a national landscape where the first copycats were starting to enter the market already. And some of them were created by these large companies that I knew could ramp up production very quickly of what they were doing. And so the choice was either stay growing kind of slower and end up losing out on the majority of the nation in terms of the volume and sales in those areas of the country and stay a regional brand, or take outside money, build a brand new facility, and be able to launch nationally and grow dramatically faster. And it was just going well enough. I was like, I just don't want to look back in 2 years and be like, you know what? I still have a few $1 million business that's profitable and doing great, when, we had the opportunity to create a massive brand and a massive company. And so I was like, let's go for it and find the right partner. Now, when, that adage, don't raise money when you need to, the only exception to that is if things are going extremely well and you need money because you need to build out massive capacity to do even better. And so we were kind of the belle of the ball for fundraising at that moment. And we were able to choose a partner that we felt like brought the best strategic value to what we were doing. And they were wonderful operating partners and did a great job of helping us figure out how to operate better. They ran produce companies on the West Coast that were doing, helping them do billions of dollars of volume. And so they could put me in front of engineers that could say, here's how you build a vegetable production facility. Here are the things to look out for. And so they brought us a bunch of help to build a facility in a very quick timeline. We built a 60,000 square foot food safe vegetable production facility in under 7 months. It was a crazy project, but we knew we needed a lot of capital to do that. So I took that capital and started that, those timelines. And their first investment was minority investment. But then as we needed capital to grow sales and marketing beyond that, they end up taking those board seats and majority share of the company.
And fast forward, what is the end game for you with CeCe's? What happened that it proved to be the right decision to scale up? You wanted to build something that could last. What happens at that point after that? And when did you decide that, you know what? Like we started off this conversation with, I'm a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It's time for me to go to the next thing. What is kind of the end story of that? And how do you start back and start, climbing up that wall all over again?
Yeah. Building that facility, and then we were able, once our production capacity just took off, and we built these tight processes around it, and we're creating profitable product, and it became a journey of maximization instead of like revolution or, major stair-step changes. And once it became a game of how do we squeeze 2 or 3 more pennies out of this particular product and this particular production,
which is CPG. CPG is that game,
yes,
right?
Yes. So growing that. And so then to me, it was like, okay, now that we are maximizing, which is not like really what I love to do, my job is to build a good team for that and then step aside and let them go do what they do best. And I became kind of the mad scientist in the corner, like inventing new products and inventing new things for the company, and did that for a while until it was like, you can't invent any more things that are fit within the category. And so that's when I ended up leaving the company.
I see. And what is your advice for other entrepreneurs that are at any phase that you had in your journey, right? The company that was the initial success almost seems easy. The company that is just dragging on, I can't get the result. The company that needs like rocket fuel, but you're going to lose control. For all of those, given all of your experiences, what is your recommendation to the founders that you advise on how to navigate all of this? What's the one thing they can do to give themselves a better chance of success?
Well, it may or may not give them the better chance of success, but I think it gives them the better chance of being happy and fulfilled. Is I try to advise them to really take stock of what they want out of it. What do they want themselves personally? Because everyone gets caught up in all these external forces and what they should be doing and what their advisors are saying. And I'm like, look inside, and, if it's dragging out, but you love what you're doing, then, stay in the trenches and you'll figure it out as if you keep tweaking. Or if this is going to be a rocket ship, but you're not the one to do it, then, find the right people to do it and watch your baby grow and be okay with it going away. But just make sure that you know what you want out of it.
And I think, so many times when I talk to entrepreneurs, we have a lot as our clients, entrepreneur myself, you tend to get into like, hey, this is a great market opportunity. This is I can see there's a room. And sometimes it's like in a field, like you don't care about, you don't know anything, but it's like, it's an opportunity. The problem with that is that at some point, it's probably likely the going's going to get tough.
Yeah.
And to your point, if you don't want to stick it out because you really care about it, it's going to be hard to stick it out. You probably shouldn't stick it out at that point. But unless this is that first case of this is super easy, what you have to navigate is just like your passion for it. And that's like an undervalued asset, wouldn't you say, in your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And I learned for better or worse lesson right out of college when I was working as an engineer, and I realized I wasn't actually motivated by money. And so that has ended up really realizing that early on in my career has helped me in my entrepreneurial journey, knowing that, looking at something and saying, oh, I can go make a lot of money at this never is what got me out of bed. It's like, is what I'm doing, does it excite me? And am I passionate about it? So I always look to my passion first when deciding between things or even thinking about new ventures. And sometimes that can be hard because sometimes things can be exciting for a little while and then not anymore. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm passionate about it, but I don't actually like the work about it. And so it's a complex issue that I think, entrepreneurs should take some time with and sit with and be like, is this, because like you said, the going will get tough. At some point, it will get tough. And when it's tough, are you going to want to still be in it or not?
Trained as a chemical engineer, Mason's entrepreneurial ventures started with an organic landscaping company, followed by a failed restaurant business in Spain. Back in the US, he launched an organic grocery delivery service that faced significant financial hurdles before ultimately being sold. His latest venture, CeCe's Veggie Co., offered a novel low-carb pasta alternative that quickly gained popularity despite competitive and operational challenges. Mason's journey showcases the essence of entrepreneurship, adaptability, resilience, and a knack for identifying market gaps. His story is a testament to turning failures into stepping stones towards success, teaching us valuable lessons on determination, strategic thinking, and the power of innovation. And with that, it's case closed.